the scariest thing that you'll ever encounter is a closed closet door, with the dog growling at it, because our brain, our greatest fear is just the unknown. So when we can't see it, whatever our brain puts behind that closed closet door is always scarier than the monster that pops out.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we've got a lot. We got a lot for you today. This is the second episode of our recovery month. So we have an amazing guest for you, as usual. And we've also got a lot of announcements. So let me start out with the review of the week. This week's review, one of the best podcasts out there, ! I've never been a person who would listen to podcasts, but the Ignited podcast is so amazing, and it has really inspired me to start listening to other podcasts. Sophie and Dr. Adi are both lovely humans, and it's brilliant that they are willing to share all the things they share and use honesty, openness, and vulnerability to share their journey. I would recommend it to everyone. Definitely give it a listen. I would recommend it to everyone too.
Love that. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. And we're so happy we got you started on this podcast journey. Sophie, you got a quote for us?
Yes. So in my most recent yoga events or yoga classes, I have been saying the following quote, which I kind of just made up, but it's really resonating and feels like a good connection to Recovery Month in general. The more aligned I am with my best self, from the choices I make to the relationships I nurture, the more my life becomes what I always wanted. I just feel like this really, obviously when I'm teaching it in yoga, I'm not necessarily talking about one given thing, but just this alignment and how recovery affects you in such gnarly ways. Well, how drug addiction or alcohol addiction or whatever addiction it is that the person is suffering with. And for, it all comes down to redirecting focus and focusing on the things that are healthier, more nurturing, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and your life is different.
Yeah, I think that idea of focusing on what makes you your best self is really, really hard when you're in the depths of suffering.
It's one choice at a time.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to first make the decision to start focusing on that stuff, and then you actually have to discover what that even means for you. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, in all the conversations we're having this month, the revelation of what that is a huge part of recovery. And because this is Recovery Month, we're doing a lot of things at Ignited to try to make recovery easier for a lot of people. So first of all, the week that this is going on, we'll have other ways of announcing this as well. But if you're listening right now, we are offering the lifetime access to all the amazing 21-day challenge materials that we do. Normally, this is $297. We dropped it to $97. And so if you get that, you'll have access to it forever. And every time we do another challenge and we have more experts, you will get it. And you can just keep cycling through it. When you have challenges, when you have things in your life that you want to change, go through the process. That 21 days will always be yours. And you can do it. So that's one amazing thing that we're doing. And if you're struggling, to me, that's like an easy dipping your toe into recovery. Like take one habit you want to change and change it. So that's one really amazing thing we're doing. We'll have a link below for that. We also have 2 ways to get scholarships to what we do right now, which I'm really excited to be able to announce for Recovery Month. So first of all, if you haven't heard, then you're not paying attention to what we're doing everywhere on social media. We've got the Ignited Glow event coming up mid-October here locally in LA. There are tickets. Go get them if you feel so inclined. But we're also going to offer some scholarship tickets to people. And so you're going to have to email us for that one. That's kind of like a special off-the-cuff thing that we just want to offer people.
Yeah, you basically just send us an email and just share your heart with us. Like, we are human. We are here. You know that we have our struggles. I can tell you that right now.
We struggle?
Yeah, all the time. But, write us a letter from your heart and just let us know why you'd like to attend, and we will get back to you.
Yeah, we've got some amazing, for those of you listening right now who are kind of like, whoa, what's this Ignited Glow thing? We've got all of our amazing friends. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, kind of look at the list of the people we've had, take 80% of those people and they're at this event. It's going to be ridiculous and magical and amazing. I can't wait to even see everything that's happening there. And obviously, Sophie and I will be there for those 3 days as well, October 18th through the 20th. But those of you who are having a hard time with money and want to see if there's a way to get a scholarship for it, let us know about that. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you go to bit.ly/ignited, IGNTD, all caps, and then scholarship, which is the first S capitalized, we have an application for you to get access to our Introduction Recovery Online program completely for free. So we're giving away 10 of those in September, and
Amazing.
I'm really, really, really excited.
That's so beautiful.
Go on, fill out the application. There's a process, and we will be announcing winners as they reveal themselves. All right. That was a lot of announcements. But it's Recovery Month, and this is what I do. This is my life. This is everything that my purpose is linked up with. So we have a lot of announcements to hopefully allow more of you this month to find your own recovery than before.
And this interview is amazing, and let it inspire you and let it open up your mind and heart to everything that Mishka has, to offer. I think he is so inspiring, and everything he said really resonated with me and with kind of our philosophy on addiction.
Yeah, Mishka to me is an example of how you can end up having these really traumatic life experiences and still just kind of be expected to get up, move on, grow up, and get on with your life. And we just don't give enough weight, and we don't put enough time, and we don't give enough attention to kids who struggle in this way. You're going to hear about these really, really powerful, really painful experiences he had early on in life, and they just kind of get brushed under the rug, just kind of like, okay, well, move on. If you ever want to talk about this stuff, please come to us, but otherwise, get out of here and be a normal kid. And when I hear stories like this, I don't wonder why people turn to drugs and alcohol.
Right. They want to escape.
Yeah. And they have a reason to escape. Mishka has this really unconventional recovery story as well, which obviously I really connect with. And you'll hear about that. I want this month on Ignited to be about allowing people to find their own path. And I think his story really, really does that. There's also a really interesting parallel for us. He's a writer, and he's done a lot of, he's taught, and he's done a lot of things in that arena. But you can kind of just tell there's still this little, maybe not so little, string of angst and like discomfort that runs there, and you see him fighting it. He even shared about it in the end a little bit.
I love your approach to recovery and to addiction and the way that you help people. And I think that this month is the perfect time to capitalize and focus on that. I think it's so beautiful that you're offering scholarships to these people, to 10 people. I love that it can be anywhere in the entire world, no matter who you are or where you came from or where you are on your journey, you can apply for this. Same thing goes that if you can afford your course, and it is so affordable, and the fact that you ran a rehab for so many years, almost 5 years in Beverly Hills, you know what it's like to go to rehab yourself. You went to several. You also know what it's like to run a rehab, a very high-end rehab that most people, it's unattainable. Most people can't do that. They can't afford it. They won't do it. So I love that now you have an online course, Ignited Recovery, where you can help people no matter where they are in their lives.
Yeah, we've had almost 200 people do it all over the world. I mean, obviously primarily USA, but Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, all over the US. Struggling with everything from alcohol to drugs to sex to gambling to food. Because what Ignited Hero does, which is the name of the program, is it's really about helping people resolve those underlying issues, right? Like we talk in this interview quite a bit about the things that happen in life that bring you to wanting to rely on your addiction. It's not magic. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not some weird esoteric thing that happened and you're born to be an addict. It's just you have biological predispositions. Things happen in life. You are born into a certain environment, and it all kind of comes together. So the people that come to me really, it's normally one of two kinds of people. One, people who've been struggling for a really, really long time and just never went to an official anything because none of it resonated for them.
Right.
And so they didn't want to go to AA, they didn't want to go to meetings, they didn't want to go to rehab, they couldn't afford, whatever the thing was, they couldn't afford to go to rehab, whatever that is. And so they finally found something that spoke to them. That's one kind of person. And the other kind of person is actually the exact opposite, is somebody who has been to everything. They've done rehab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think the most, literally I've worked with a client who's done rehab like 50 or 60 times.
Wow.
And it just hasn't worked. And so they look at this as almost like a last resort.
Yeah.
Either way, the whole idea for me, and this is my idea for doing a recovery month for our podcast, was there are a lot of different ways of finding your salvation. And the one message I want to be clear to everybody who listens to this month with us is there's not one way to get there. There's not a right way to get there. It's not important if you get help from me or from somebody else. We're just trying to make it easier for those of you who are around the world and can't, like you said, take time off to go to rehab or don't have the $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for a month of rehab or all that kind of stuff. We're trying to make it easy in my way, in the way that I know how to do it. But the point is almost like Winston Churchill's quote, right? Never, 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 never give up.
Yeah.
You can find the right way for you if you just perk your ears up, listen for what attracts you, listen for what feels like it connects to who you are and like it might resolve the struggles that you have. For me, it was mental health, anxiety, social anxiety, and, feeling out of sorts and ashamed about who I was on a really, really deep level. That's what was going on for me early on in the process, and that's what I needed to resolve to get to the other side. And so I really wanted to pull all the stops this month and help people in any way that I could.
Yeah. I love it. I love your mission. And I think you're going to help so many people, even though you already have helped so many thousands and thousands of people with your work over the last decade and some. And I so appreciate it. And I know how much you give to that. And I hope that if you're listening and you know someone that's struggling or you are that person that's struggling, you immediately email a D and check out his course, send his course to somebody. It's mind-blowing, and it's just different than what's being done currently. And that's just so refreshing. Yeah.
And, you can get help for the cost of a cheap Starbucks cup. I don't even think it's the price of the large cups. It's like the price of like small or medium drip coffee at Starbucks per day. And that's how easy I want to make it. So
good. I love that.
Check out our stuff. Check out anybody's stuff who speaks to you. This is, let's put the focus on success this month. Despite of all the struggles, despite of everything else that is going on, Mishka's story will absolutely speak to you. Just check out. He's really funny too. He's got a really cool way of talking about his story. And he's been through a lot. So you listen to what he struggled with and how he got to the other side. And hopefully that'll give you even more hope than some of the other stuff we've done before.
Yeah, anything's possible.
And then don't forget, as Sophie mentioned, tag us, screenshot this, send it to somebody who might benefit from it. Get in touch with us if you're one of those people who might need help, because in the end, it's all about providing the help and all about making people's lives better. Thank you so much.
We love you guys.
We'll see you on the other side.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
I feel like kids just make fun of any name.
Yeah.
Your name could be Mike. Your name could be Mike, and they will butcher it on purpose to make you upset and cry in the corner. Maybe that will be the intro for this episode. Kids will butcher your name no matter what. I feel like, everybody, probably most people listening right now can identify with that. We've got Mishka in the house today. How are you doing, Mishka?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm great. I'm actually really, really excited about this conversation in the context of this recovery month thing we've got going on right now. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean for this to happen, and I hope. Well, I don't want to hope, because we talked about some historical characters before we got live on this, but just as a quick little intro, if you could meet any historical figure, living or deceased, who would you choose? Why?
Oh man, that's a big one. I mean, I would maybe like Anton Chekhov.
Wow.
He was always one of my favorite writers. He was, he was a doctor in addition to being a writer. There's just, and I feel like he's the type of person, the type of character who I can sort of like just pump for info. Like I would be psyched to be on a long road trip with him from maybe the drive from Portland down to San Francisco. If I had Anton Chekhov in the passenger seat,
I love it.
We could just talk the entire time.
That's so awesome. We have these podcasts now, and I feel like in the past you would get books so that people could write, and they could have kind of these tomes where they would get to describe and really get deep into thought. But other than that, everything else was so short relatively, right? The opportunity to have these kind of long drawn out discussions that are allowed to meander just because they are. I feel like it just wasn't as present. Everything had to be, obviously in the age of TV and editing and everything that we're doing now, it's even more extreme maybe. But yeah, the concept of what would it be like to have a 4-day road trip with somebody who's worthwhile listening to would be pretty amazing. Yeah,
I teach writing as well. It's one of the zillion things that I do to try and avoid having a real job. And one of the things that we talk about is the way, sustained dialogue affects how people think, and, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, how it leads to greater understanding and sort of like higher thought. So I'm definitely a huge believer in the power of dialogue, the power of patiently disagreeing with someone. And also being proven wrong. If I get into a disagreement with somebody and then I win the argument or I sway them to my side, I've gained nothing. But if I get into a disagreement with somebody and they can show me that I'm wrong, I won. Because I learned something new in that instance.
Oh,
I like that a lot.
Can we shift the entire perspective of the U.S. on politics right now to that way of thinking? Just for like a couple of years. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, man. It's a weird time to be alive.
Yeah. You mentioned avoiding having a real job. And you're talking to a guy who sits in his own home office and tries to invent ways to make a living, and we're sitting on a podcast. But you've done a lot in avoiding having a real job. You've published, you're a musician, you run like a lot.
Like a real runner.
You run a lot.
Runner.
And you teach, as you mentioned. So, you do a lot in the interest of avoiding having a 9-to-5.
Yeah, I find that I work incredibly hard to avoid working. And also when you work for yourself, your boss is a dick. And, and there's no days off, and it's just, with Labor Day, people were like, "Oh, I hope you're not working." And I was like, "Dude, are you kidding?" Every day is a work day when you work for yourself. But I love it. It's frustrating sometimes because when you're your own boss, you find that like a 90-minute job can take up the entire day. Because it just seems to, it's like a sponge. It'll take up however much room you give it. But I have weird survivor guilt, towards all my friends who are still sort of like in cubicles working 9-to-5 jobs, because people always ask me like, would anything anything ever send you back to drinking? And my answer is always the same, is that if I ever had to go back and get like a 9-to-5 cubicle job, I would go right back to drinking and nothing would stand in my way.
Yeah.
That work environment was like so poisonous for me.
Yeah. Monotony.
Sophie, have you ever had a 9-to-5 cubicle job?
Nope. It's the exact opposite of my personality. I would be an alcoholic as well.
I kind of feel like that's why alcohol was invented, is just so you can make it, alcohol and caffeine. Those are the only things that ever made it possible for me to get through a 40-hour 9-to-5, work week.
Yeah. Or, I think this gets a little bit, or maybe not a little bit, into the conversation that I really want to have here today, which is the concept of recovery, your thoughts on it. You've been through a lot. I know you can half joke about the amount of work you've put into what you do now and the level of success that you've achieved in that. But you've been through a lot. And we can start, and I want to talk about, what living in boarding school is like, let alone the kind of boarding school and the experiences you had specifically. And the arc that follows into why people end up depending on outside sources of comfort, be they what they may, right? Like from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, it doesn't really matter what the thing is, in my opinion. It's just a mechanism to cope with the struggles that we're not that great at creating sustainable coping strategies for.
Yeah. I guess I'll just do a little sort of like nickel introduction to my background here to sort of help get into it. So, I was born in Canada, lived all over the States, sort of following, my father's job that had us moving around a couple of times. And then I went away to school when I was 15 after 2 years of high school to start like an accelerated college program. While I was there was a school shooting one night in which 6 people on our campus were shot. 2 of them were killed. I went home the next day to find out my parents were going to get divorced. And then from there, sort of like just everything just went to shit. Ended up moving to New York when I was always sort of driven by writing and music. And I moved to New York when I was 21 to try and make it as a writer and a musician. And then just sort of ground away there for 17 years. And, really, I guess 10 years in, I'd never found, I sort of kept having these little, like almost making it as a writer, almost making it as a musician, but it never really happened for me. And then finally I got sober and published a series of best-selling sort of mini memoirs through Amazon, and that led to a conventional book deal. Well, when I got sober, I became an ultra runner, and then that led to a book deal, which led to the writing gig. And now I haven't had a real job in like 9 years, and I love it.
Yeah.
But there's still plenty of chaos in my sober life now of like, being on tour and stuff and moving across country and stuff like that. But,
where do you live now?
I'm in Phoenix right now, which is a nightmare. Nobody come here. Phoenix in the summertime is just insane. We had sort of like an abrupt thunderstorm the other night, and I was like, oh, I got to like run out, just see like how much the weather's, or how much the temperatures come down. I went outside and I was like, oh man, I feel like it dropped like 10 degrees. And I checked on my phone and it was 95. I was like, when 95 feels like a nice, cool evening, it's like, oh, this is insane.
It is.
But,
it is.
But I do love it here. There's a killer, I've found that there's a killer arts community in Phoenix, that in sort of New York and LA, people want to go to parties to talk about the things that they're doing. And in Phoenix, you just do it or you don't do it. But there's not so much like talking about shit at parties.
I don't see you as a talking about shit at parties kind of guy.
Yeah, no, I've always had like very little patience for that. I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, I wonder if I've ever gone to some like one of those like networking or mingling, events and ever gotten anything out of it. And I can't think of once that maybe inspiration for a for a story about what's wrong with going to parties. Yeah. Well, I mean, also, for a long time, I was just the drunkest guy in the room. So that, you get your own sort of rare distinction from that, which is it's not a positive distinction.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't mind, I'd love to dig into that for a tiny moment here. School shooting. I mean, man, talk about something that makes it into the news apparently once a week now. And I've never lived through one. You have. I imagine that's a pretty jarring experience, let alone what happened the next day when you went home. But it's a pretty jarring experience to go to this place where you're supposed to be safe and you're supposed to be playing with friends and maybe like throwing a piece of paper at a teacher when their back is turned and doing homework, and then 6 classmates die just in the middle of a school day. What does that do to the way you look at the world, to the experience you have waking up the next day? Has it had impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I should say that we were less innocent than you describe. I mean, we were getting drunk and drinking cough syrup and smoking weed and eating acid, and you know what I mean? So it was already sort of like the, not totally feral children, but it was fun. And it wasn't something that we were doing sort of out of despair. It was sort of like teenage experimentation.
Sure.
And then when the shooting went down, it was one of my classmates. It was a guy who had been on my basketball team. And, it's like you woke up, I woke up December 14th, a kid, and woke up December 15th, an adult, and you get dragged in, whether you want to or not, you just get dragged into that world. And, had the realization then, something that stayed with me this whole time, that safety is an illusion, and that it's impossible for your parents to keep you safe, and for parents, it's impossible to keep your children safe, that like this life that we have is fragile every day. And, and that's had some positive effects on me where I try to be clear with the people in my life, the people that I love. I'm going to tell them that I love them a couple of times to make sure that it sinks in, and people that I don't feel make a positive contribution to my life don't remain in my life for very long. I got clarity there of that, life is too short and too precious to waste it on people who don't contribute to your life, and, but also like, with Vegas, shooting in Vegas last year, every time, for a while there, it was like every time there was a new mass shooting, I would go toe to toe with all the Second Amendment absolutists and talk about the need for realistic, meaningful, specific gun control, making it, very difficult to get a handgun, making it very difficult to get an AR-15, which is, it's a weapon of war. It's designed to kill the most amount of people in the shortest time possible. But every time I would engage with these people, I would go into like just this week-long sort of tunnel of anxiety and fear and rage. And then I was like, oh, did I come out of this with some PTSD? I don't know. my tendency has always been to minimize stuff like that, to say, no, I'm okay, I'm fine, but it's, it's weird, nearly 20 years later, not 20 years, nearly 25 years later, my friends and I, still every December, as the anniversary rolls around, we have a mounting sense of dread and grief, and it keeps playing out,
Yeah. I think PTSD is just a name we've given the impact of an experience, and in this case, the impact of a highly negative experience. But every time that what I'm hearing that you talk about this topic, it brings up your related memories, and your related memories of that are waking up as a child and going to sleep as an adult. And that's a quick transition, right? That's not the way things were supposed to happen. And I'm kind of putting air quotes around supposed to, because the idea was to have safety. And when you discovered that there was no safety, you were still pretty young. Whereas, some of us only get to discover that at 18, 19, 20. We've had a longer, 25, we've had a longer stretch of that illusion of safety.
Yeah.
Which then we get to carry along with us. And I imagine that for you, that illusion being removed and having a greater having a greater sense of anxiety or lack of safety then contributed later to finding some internal need to calm that anxiety on a more regular basis.
Yeah. I was already drinking before the shooting happened, and I was already drinking in an unhealthy way. I probably started when I was like 12 or 13. But the shooting certainly didn't help, and then also in 24 hours to have the shooting happen and then find out that my parents are getting a divorce. It's like your entire world just turns itself inside out, and it took me, it's just like having the rug pulled out from under you. So it took me a long time to recover from that. And in some ways, I'm still recovering from it. There's a great New Yorker cartoon from years ago that's just it's a picture of a tattoo on some guy's arm, and it says, "Ask me about my parents' divorce," which is like funny and sad, because there's some shit that we just never get over,
Yeah. So I'd never experienced divorce really, but you did. Mm-hmm. How old were you?
They separated when we were 4 and 6. So I was 6 when they separated, and then officially divorced when I was 8. But they separated when I was 6. So, I barely have memories of them together. Barely. Uh-huh. Like really what I remember is just fighting. Like that's all I really remember. And they're already separated by that point. So I don't really have strong, fond memories of them together or us as a family. I know they happened in those first 6 years, but few and far between. But yeah, I think PTSD is on a scale just like anything else. And I think we're all affected by the things that happen in our lives in different ways. And I think for us, how old were you when this happened?
I was 15.
Yeah. Like it doesn't really matter like what age, when you're a child, like you said, like the minute that safety is taken away and there's a certain purity. That's the way that I describe my kids. Like my 9-year-old is just still pure. Like he goes to a Waldorf school. He doesn't have an awareness. Like there is no question of safety. He doesn't even say he's afraid of, like being in his room alone. He's not afraid of things because there's nothing to be afraid of in his world. And that's so beautiful. And he's not like, he'll listen to the news sometimes and ask questions, but like there's a place where like things just shift and they have a deeper awareness of the world having bad in it and bad things happen. Like he hasn't had a huge death in his lifetime. He, like we're together. there hasn't been some like huge, like think everything, you know, but it's like, I'm just holding on to the purity for dear life, because by this point, you know, my parents were already divorced. I had already moved 3 times by this point in a traumatic way. Like, we've moved, but it's always fun. They're excited by it, especially Kai, our older one. He's like, he thrives in transitions, and he's like, "Oh, this is exciting. This is fun. Like, what's next?" And that's the way that we've kind of approached it.
Yeah.
It's the energy behind it. And yeah, I think it's just, how long can we hold on to this purity and then deal with it appropriately if there is something PTSD related or something that affects them in a negative way.
Your oldest child is named Kai,
mm-hmm.
and he's 9.
Yeah.
My nephew was just out here in Phoenix, and he's 9, and his name is Kai.
Oh my
God, that's amazing. That's such a cool parallel.
There's something about kids at that age of like 8 or 9 where there's something just magical about
mm-hmm.
them. You know, I remember Kai's sister like sitting on my knee one time when she was 9, and I was like, "Coco, don't laugh." And she immediately started laughing. So, and it's me. And all I had to do to get her to laugh was to, like, tell her, like, you know, increasingly stern, like, "I command you not to laugh." And she would laugh,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And then
awesome.
When Kai was here, I took him to see The Lion King. And then when we were, we got popcorn and stuff, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. And then we were driving back in the car, and my sister had these 3 big, beautiful dogs. And in the last 8 months, they lost every one of them.
Wow.
And it was just like, and, you know, in sort of heartbreaking ways too. And not that there's any good way to lose a dog, but I wrote a song about those dogs and sort of like losing dogs in our life. And that was brutal, like trying to write it. And then I had it on my phone, and I knew that I wanted to talk to Kai about this, talk about loss, talk about grief, talk about sadness. And also, like, I want him to know that it's okay to cry, and that, you know, it's okay to, you know, to see a man cry, and like, it's okay for men to cry. Yeah. And so I was like, "Kai, do you want to hear this song?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dude, I'm warning you, it's really sad. Like, we're both going to cry if I play it for you." And he was like, "No, I want to hear it. I got to hear it." And so I played it for him. And as soon as it came on, I was like, "Oh God, what have I done?" You know? And I'm like, just looking like dead ahead, like biting my tongue as hard as I can. Cause I was like, I'm not going to cry before this little kid. And then he's like staring straight out the window. And I was like, all right, I'm just keep it together. My eyes are filling with tears. And then finally, like, I looked over at him, and he looks at me. We're both just weeping in the car. And I, you know, so like, and we just cried, you know, like listening to the song. And then we got back to the house, and, you know, we talked for a minute, and, you know, just talked to him a little bit about death and loss, and like, how great dogs are. And, I don't know if I did the right thing or not.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
you know, I want him to see that adults feel sadness too. And that, like, you know, his dad is like, you know, kind of a hard ass, and like, I want him to see sort of different models of masculinity.
Well, I think
that's so key.
What I hear in the story more than anything is, I wanted to be honest with him, but I was scared, because what if it's not the right time yet to be honest with him? But I think one of the things that is so magical about what Sophie and I call this radical transparency is the idea that when you're honest all the way, when you're not hedging your bets around honesty, then for the most part, it's not always true. Nothing is certain. But for the most part, people on the other side actually understand you, and understand the intent, and understand the messaging behind what it is you're saying in a much, much clearer and more relevant way for their life than if you had tried to somehow manipulate the situation to provide the right message for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. Like, kids are smart. Kids know what's going on.
They feel it.
You know? And yeah. And you know, it would I'm pretty emotionally transparent, so it would have been hard for me to like put some like tie it up with a nice bow, of like, oh, now she's just a star in the sky or whatever. No, like dogs die and it's sad. The end, but it's worth it. That's why we sign up for it again and again, because the love you get from a dog is unconditional, and but there was definitely part of me that wanted to preserve his innocence, and like I didn't want to have this moment with him because I wanted him to just stay a kid for as long as possible. But this is the thing, man, like real life had other plans for him, like whether I play this song for him and whether we share this sexperience together or not, the dogs are gone and he's heartbroken and all the kids are, so sometimes you just have to like stare loss in the face and be like, yes, this is what it is,
So I want to draw the parallel between that and what you went through. You're a kid. You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this kid you played basketball with to come and shoot a bunch of kids in your school and kill them. You didn't ask for your parents to get divorced, but it happened. It all happened within 24 hours. And I'm pretty sure anybody listening right now can understand the complete level of disorientation with the universe that you would have within 24 hours if both of those things happen. If one of them happened by itself, but both of them together, it's like, I don't know. It's like a shooting star blasting itself into your own life. And then you have to keep going. And you had tools. I mean, you talked about starting to use at an early age. I think a lot of us who got into trouble did. I was 13. And so you had this tool, right? You had drugs. And drugs were really good at covering up the level of pain, the severe pain that you were experiencing at this cataclysmic event that you would just gone through. And so you relied on them and you ended up relying on them. I don't feel like we need war stories because we can probably have a 4-hour session just talking to people about the insane shit we did when we just went all in on drug use. And you talked about, for a long time, you were the drunkest guy at the party and all that stuff. And so you went through that and you went through it for how long? How long were you kind of in the thick of, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get through today?
Well, I mean, it's funny. I've been writing about a lot of this because I have a new project that I'm working on. But one of the things that I realized is that I was 17 when I figured out that I was an alcoholic, and then kept drinking for 15 more years. I was 32 when I finally stopped for good. One of the things that I sort of realized in the course of writing my book was that, and it sort of just popped into my head again, telling the story about Kai, is that neither one of my parents ever talked to me about the shooting. My mother, always said, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. But my dad didn't say a word about it. Mm. And then I ended up having to testify in the murder trial. So I was sequestered, which meant that I couldn't talk to my classmates either. So it wasn't really something that I knew was eating away at me. I just knew that I was miserable. And I mean, I really carried a lot of that until I wrote the book. And then when I really sort of like went into detail about, for the first time I wrote about the shooting and realized like, oh, holy shit, there's a lot here that I haven't dealt with, that I don't want to deal with. And now I'm going to deal with it, and I do feel way, way better, way more. I'm still sort of nowhere near at peace, but closer to at peace with it than I was, before I wrote the book, which is another sort of, testament to the power of writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sister and I just had a conversation on this podcast. I think by the time this comes out 2 weeks ago, and our dad left the house and then came back, and so it was a near divorce. It didn't happen, but like my parents split up for this moment, and it was like this bizarre, almost like in the Matrix when the cat passes by the stairwell, and the guy goes, I think I just saw that cat doing the exact same thing a moment ago, and they talk about deja vu.
Yeah.
Up until this conversation with my sister, that's what my dad leaving for 3 days was. It was just this bizarre thing that happened, and then nobody spoke of it. and my sister and I had the same sort of revelation in the conversation we had that you just talked about, which was it's unnerving. It's actually more unnerving when nobody will talk about this insane thing that happened than it would be to just have the really difficult conversation about it, because you almost don't trust yourself about.
Or you can make yourself crazy over it.
Yeah, because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
did it happen? Did it happen the way I remember it? Nobody else is talking about it.
Yeah, it
So
must
what
not
the
have
fuck?
been that big of a deal. Or
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, and to go through that with a shooting, I can't even fathom.
So I'm in the process of frantically writing this audiobook for audible.com about my experience getting sober without AA and staying sober without AA. And thank you. And one of the things that I went down this rabbit hole the other day, because I was like, I know there's a Stephen King quote that I really need. And finally somebody dug it out for me. But basically, the gist of the quote is that the scariest thing that you'll ever encounter is a closed closet door, with the dog growling at it, because our brain, our greatest fear is just the unknown. So when we can't see it, whatever our brain puts behind that closed closet door is always scarier than the monster that pops out. And that's the same, too, with when we try to conceal stuff that's like in plain view, to say, everything's okay. When it's not, that thing of like, oh, we're not going to talk about dad being gone for 3 days, or we're not going to talk about mom's drinking, or we're not going to talk about this, this series of horrific losses that our family has gone through, and it sucks, man. I hate those conversations. I have zero interest in like doing the emotional heavy lifting. I hate it. I dread it. I have tons of anxiety about it. And then when I finally get it together to wade into it, it's never as bad. It's like doing your taxes. You always think like, oh my God, this is going to suck. And then it's like an hour and a half of misery, and then it's over, and then you're free.
Yeah.
And you're better for it. And the relationship's better for it.
And the IRS doesn't come to take everything you have. So I have a interesting thought about how this actually relates to your whole recovery journey, right? You talked about that closed door and the dog growling at it. If I can be honest, I feel like that's pretty much what AA does to everybody about alcohol problems. What they say is, look, there's this magical, mystical thing. It's called your higher power. And if you don't admit that you're actually completely powerless and that thing has control over your life, you will be in misery forever, because you've got this magical disease that's doing push-ups. You can't see it, and nobody's identified it exactly, but it exists. And if you don't succumb to our way of doing it, you will die in misery. And what I love about the possibility for us to have this conversation is, I know that's not true. Not only because I was in AA for 3 years myself and then left. And by the way, I'm still totally fine for everybody I went to meetings with. I'm still okay. But because I've seen now hundreds and hundreds of people doing it, I've done it myself. And I'm interested for you, because you didn't go that conventional route. What is the way you look at your sobriety, your recovery? I know running is part of the way you deal with it now. And I'd love to hear about it, because this is Recovery Month, and I want to give people as many resources as possible to discover their own way to move forward.
I got to say this at the outset, because whenever I talk about AA, people always skip over this thing, and I want to make it harder and harder for them to skip over. If you're going to AA, if you're in AA, if AA is working for you, I 100% support you.
Yep.
If the program has saved your life, if it's helped you live better, if it's helping you live better right now, drive on.
Amen.
Keep doing it. If it's working, if it's working for you, go for it, and pay no attention to all the things that I'm about to say.
Hallelujah. And that's true for anybody regarding any solution and any time, by the way. But yes.
Yeah, exactly. If it works for you, if it works, then it works, know? And like, and by no means, what should you take anything that I'm saying as undermining your success, your recovery, your health, the the work that you're doing to get better, to stay sober.
Thank you for saying that.
For me, the higher power thing, that was a huge deal breaker. My entire family's Catholic, and I sort of went back through my memory. I can't remember. I don't have any I have never like molested by a priest or anything like that. I can't remember even like, I remember being like having to go to church a couple times and being bored, but I never remember like getting yelled at or menaced, or, you know what I mean? There's no sort of history of trauma there. I just remember like walking out into the driveway. I was probably 6. I had my shirt off. I was wearing those little green running shorts that I had, looked up at the sky, and I was like, nah. And I just have never felt in my life anything close to God or a higher power or a spiritual presence. And the idea that I was getting beaten up by alcohol, by drinking, by alcoholism, by drug use, and that then I would have to submit further. I already felt like my power in life had been compromised. And in order to get better, I was going to have to give up all of that power. It's like, no, I'm quitting drinking to take power back in my life, and if I'm going to go from the cult of alcohol to the cult of no alcohol, it's still a cult. And I don't, I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet, and like, my hope was to just build a life for myself that existed independent of alcohol, that I wasn't dependent on it, that I wasn't living in fear of it, that I was just living my life and doing the shit that I needed to do. Yeah. So, I had a lot of resistance to AA that, prevented me from going to AA when I finally made up my mind to quit drinking. And that's really only grown, over the years after I've, sort of done more research and, poked around in it. But, my own personal story, I have a lot of fans and friends in the UK, and they love it when I tell them that, I was sort of just a happy-go-lucky drunk in the United States for 17 years. And then I went to the UK for 2 weeks, and they fucking broke me. But like, you can drink anywhere in the UK. You can drink on the street. You can, and I did. I went there with my, with my band on tour for a couple of weeks, and I was just drunk the entire time. And then when I came home, I remember on the flight home, just everybody on the plane being asleep, and I kept getting up and going back to the flight attendants. I was traveling with 4 other guys, and I said, and they were like, the flight attendants were trying to sleep, and I was like, oh, the guys need a refill. I need 5 more glasses of wine. And so then I would get 5 more plastic glasses of wine, walk back to my seat, drink them all myself, go up for another round, go up for another round. And I could never get to that point where I felt okay. I was just drinking and drinking and drinking, and I never got the like satisfaction or the release. The Tennessee Williams in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, he talks about the click, where the red light goes off and the blue light goes on, and I never got there. And I was like, that's it. I'm fucking done. And when I got back to the US, I was so exhausted. I just didn't have the strength to take another drink. I just couldn't do it, And I think I'd finally gotten like canned from my last gig, working in a bar. So I was unemployed, and I just sort of like lay in my room for 4 days, sweating it all out. Yeah. And then, sort of inch by inch, day by day, I tried to, leave the apartment, walk to the grocery store, walk to the park, I knew that, human beings are animals. Animals need food and water and exercise and sunshine. So like, just trying to take care of the fundamentals of that. And then, I knew I had to get a job because I was out of money. And the only job that, was available to me at that point was working as night manager at a bar. Yep. so I went back to the bar knowing exactly what would happen if I took a drink, and where that would lead me to, and knowing that also that I had to take this job and I had to keep this job. And so 3 weeks after I quit drinking, I went to work in a bar, and I never relapsed. I just, I don't think it's something that I would recommend to everybody who's trying to quit drinking, but in my instance, it meant that I had to build the wall between me and alcohol entirely in my head. That it's not just like stay out of the liquor store, stay out of places that sell alcohol, stay out of, bars. So there's no temptation. I talked about the idea of safety disappearing, there's no place I was that was safe from alcohol. I had like, vanilla extract, with alcohol in it in my cupboard. There's Listerine, there's aftershave, if you need to drink, there's a million places to get it.
Yeah.
As a result of like working in a bar, I built that wall in my head. And then I was, like trying to do push-ups and shit like that. And you should imagine, sort of Bill Murray in Stripes, where he, he gets through like 3 push-ups, before he joins the army. And then one day there was a fight at the bar, and my friend who was doing the door got sucker punched and he got knocked out. We had to call an ambulance for him. And in all the sort of melee, I left my bike at the bar that night, and ended up taking a taxi home. And I woke up the next morning, I was like enraged. And I was like, fuck this, man. I'm not waiting for a bus to go and get my bike. I'm just going to go get it. And I just started running into the city.
That's awesome.
And I ran all the way there, and I felt like I was dying. I was like, my heart is just going to collapse. But I made it there without stopping, and then got my bike and rode home. And, my entire body was just in shock. But then I looked on Google Maps to see how long I'd run, and it was 4.5 miles.
Damn.
And I was like, oh, I can do that, and then that started me running. And now that ended up being, not just, it wasn't what got me sober, but it's what kept me sober. And it's what helped me manage my depression, my anxiety, my, the sort of like dry drunk feelings of rage and powerlessness. And, running was a huge blessing.
It's just a very positive, a very positive habit that some people might say is like, oh, is that your new addiction? Like, oh, now you're just addicted to running. Like I've heard, my mom says that about a D because he was an addict, and like, oh, now he's just addicted to work, or now he's just addicted to whatever else. I'm like, is it like, we're talking about drugs and alcohol versus like a much more positive behavior, right? Like, why are we comparing the two? They're completely different. And one is very negative and can ruin your life, and does. And one is very positive and can enrich your life. And work is definitely not on the same, I guess anything in extremes can be bad, but for the most part, exercise is a really beautiful, ritual that can get you out of your head and help you work through problems. And, like our physical body matters, and how we feel on the outside affects how we feel on the inside. And, it's also then affects your brain and your chemistry, and, the helps with depression and helps with anxiety. And for all those positives, like I pick that.
Yeah. No disrespect to your mother, but that is bullshit.
She's insane.
And like,
bless you, Mom.
and it's like and in her defense, it's not just her. I hear that shit from people all the time of like, oh, you're replacing one addiction with another, with another. And you know what? If you're a heroin addict and then, drinking tequila gets you off heroin, power to you.
Right.
Congrats for replacing one addiction with another. That's progress. That's called harm reduction. Right. Yep. So the goal is to, you don't, I mean, it's this old sort of like Catholic model of like hellfire and damnation. Either you're in a state of grace or you're a lowly sinner, and it's not, I mean, we're at a point in our lives where growing up, sexual orientation, gender, that was black and white. You were a boy or a girl. You were straight or you were gay, and that was like the most black and white thing ever. Now we've evolved where we can see, we can see sexual orientation. We can see gender on a spectrum. Why can't we see drinking, which is totally analog, which is a totally incremental thing? Why can't we see that on the spectrum?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of things that I hear in your story that I think I want to just pull out for people who are listening right now, again, especially because it's Recovery Month. So first of all, you appear to be one of the roughly 70 to 75% of people who find their recovery without help. They just stumble onto it. So first of all, congrats.
I'm so glad you brought up those numbers. Keep going.
Congratulations, because even though your story seems to most people like an anomaly, because the story we tell all the time is I went to rehab and I was there for 60 days. And then, I went to see my psychiatrist and I got put on meds and that's how I got to the other side. That story exists, but it's actually the minority of stories. Most stories are like yours. It's just that people then don't speak up about it because they're so ashamed and downtrodden about the notion that they even failed in the first place, failed in air quotes. And so they just ignore it and they just push it to the side. Because you're sharing about it, I think a lot of other people say, oh my God, I've already done better. I drink less, or I went from drinking hard liquor to beer. Congratulations. Keep moving, keep going, you mentioned harm reduction, down the less and less harmful route. Whether you find running or work meditation or yoga or construction, I don't really care what you find.
Or a healthy relationship, or a few of them.
Find something that fills the gap, right? That allows your body, your brain, your life to have some sort of purpose, some sort of mission, some sort of connection to something you care about. Because even though you found that serendipitously and you didn't necessarily look for it, it's just kind of, thank God you left that freaking bike at the bar, right? It's so much of life is that way anyway. So much of what we get in life is some weird synchronicity that it happened completely outside of us, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. So I just want to reinforce that I love that you're telling the story publicly, because other people are probably going through the same thing. They just didn't realize that's okay.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you brought up the 70 to 75%. So I forget the acronym, but they did that huge study, I think 2002, of 43,000 people, who tested positive for is it alcohol use disorder?
Yeah, so that's like NIAAA study of anybody who kind of met criteria. It wasn't called an alcohol use disorder at the time; it was called alcohol abuse or alcohol dependence. But yes, the same thing.
And that, then they retested those same people a year later. And I think 75% of them no longer met the criteria for, alcohol abuse disorder, or basically saying that that my story and that our stories of like just sort of waking up one day and being like, man, I'm done with this bullshit. That is the dominant narrative is the like bottoming out, going to rehab or going to AA or whatever. That's the shit that we see in the movies. That's the shit that we read in books, but what's far more common. And if you're listening, if you think about this, people like this in your life of like, Uncle Jerry was pretty bad for a little while and then he just sort of pulled it together. Or, Susie went on this 18-month bender when we were in college together, and then she just dialed it back, and that counts. Those are success stories. Those are absolutely recovery stories.
I would argue, Adi, that even yes, there's so much shame, but also some people might just not even think it's a big deal. They're just like, I just woke up one day and I was over it. I didn't want to do whatever, fill in the blank anymore. And so I just stopped. There is point. That, and it's not to at all say it's that easy, but I definitely know people who are like, yeah, I just drank for that entire period of my life and I needed that at that point. But then I woke up one day and it just didn't serve me anymore. And so I made different choices. And I'm not in the addiction world. I only am because of a D, but my biggest thing that people come to me.
It's my gift to you.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
You're his plus one.
Yes.
Forever plus one. But for me, the equivalent for me is when people come to me about getting out of negative relationships in their lives or getting out of bad friendships or partnerships. And they're like, what do I do? And like, well, the first thing to do is just start replacing it. Just start crowding it out, right? Like just start doing other things. Yeah. If you're not being abused and it's not something huge, like violent behavior or like cheating or something awful, like if you're just like, this is not the right friendship for me, or how do I get out of it? Just starting to do more positive things in your life and take on new friendships that serve you in a different, better way. And then all of a sudden that friendship will be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things that's been really useful for me and really helpful for me is that like, I couldn't relapse now if I wanted to because I don't have time.
Right. You just have a new world. You have a new life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not that absolutely. Person.
I always say to people, because my thing was meth, and I'm like, doing meth is just literally not on the menu now. Like, I'd have to go fucking find it. For you with alcohol, it's not that big a deal to find it, but like I have to go find it and then I have to carve out like hours randomly in the day.
But like days.
Hey, Soph, I'm gonna go away for 5 hours. Like it's just my life doesn't fit it. But that took a while, right? It took a while for you as well to get to that place where it just doesn't fit. And it's a really nice feeling because it's not a struggle anymore. I love that.
And this is one of the things, with the like replacing one addiction with another. That what we're actually doing is we're replacing one world with another. We're replacing one person with another. And what I was doing was replacing the alcoholic Mishka with. I never liked running. I hated running. I had to like berate myself to put on my running shoes, leave the house, and like not just turn around and go right back home. It was something that I endeavored to do. I tried so hard to do it. Yeah. And for people to be like, oh, that's your new addiction. I was like, man, fuck you. It's such a drag. Like, trying to keep this up, And
I love this.
I work hard because it's a way in which I keep myself engaged, in which I remind myself that I care about myself, about my life, about my friends, about my family, about this world, about my health. I
say this to people all the time. I say, when I tell people you can beat addiction forever, you don't have to fight it for the rest of life. You can beat it forever. And they're like, shut up. You can't. I go, you can. All you have to do is become a person who's not addicted. That's it. It's not, it sounds crazy when I say it to you when you're in the middle of it, but when you're on the other side, it makes sense. Mishka, listen, I feel like we could have a 4-hour conversation, and I hope the next time you're in LA, you come over for dinner. If you can bring Chekhov, that would be amazing.
Yes.
Whether you take the road trip with him or not, but we have 5 questions that we ask everybody at the end of these, and we want to ask them of you and see what you got. Are you ready?
Okay, hit me.
Number 1 is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh man, taxi driver in New York City one time, he said, we all have to work, but you get to pick who you work for. And I was like, oh my God, it just blew my mind. And he said, me, I work for me. You can devote your entire life working for a big company, hoping to get that pension and whatever, the gold watch for 40 years of service, or you can work for yourself. I work for myself.
I love it.
What about your proudest moment?
That's a good question. There's a lot of like small proud moments where like I didn't punch that guy. Here's a recent one. I'm a huge fan of the singer Mark Lanigan, and I stalked him and became friends with him on Twitter, and then pestered him he was a heroin, meth, crack addict, alcoholic for a long time. I pestered him that he should write a book, hooked him up with my agent, helped him get a book deal, and then worked with him as editor to make this book happen. And he sent me a picture the other night of his hand holding his book, and he was like, thanks, brother. Like my entire life, I dreamed of something of this happening, and and you made it happen, and I couldn't have done it without you. So that was a big moment to help one of your heroes, you know?
Yeah. Oh, talk about having impact, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. On the flip side, and you described some, so maybe they're that, but what has been your most difficult moment?
Sort of, I guess, manage, you know, it happens again and again, sort of like managing my own, my depression, my anxiety, my frustration, my nihilism. When you stop drinking, that shit doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you've been drinking to mask or to conceal, you know, all the reasons why you drank. And, you know, and I still have that, you know, wake up each morning and I'm like, oh shit, you know, there's all the stuff that I didn't do yesterday. And, you know, I have to get that done. But I'm learning, you know, inch by inch, you know, I was on the road a lot this summer, and then just sort of getting back here and getting back into the swing of things. And, you know, last, 10 days ago, I was like, I feel like I'm on the edge of a panic attack. And I was like, go to the gym. I went to the gym, and after like 3 days at the gym, I was like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's the new tool that I use to manage my crazy head.
I love it. I love it. I had that crazy head and had to deal with that myself.
Well, that's a good segue to our fourth question, which is all about self-care. If you were to share, I mean, obviously exercise, but for self-care kind of rituals or routines that maybe you do on the daily, or maybe just something that you want to share that really allows you, like you just described, to just kind of snap out of it and stop spiraling.
The people always say like, oh, is that your mind or is that your body? Well, your mind lives in your body. So like if you don't eat all day and you're just chain smoking, your mind will fall apart because you haven't cared for your body. So I always like, you know, think about taking care of my body, like looking after a dog, you know, that like make sure it gets good food, make sure it gets enough good food, not too much, you know, make sure it gets, you know, water and sunshine and exercise and stuff like that. You know, often the best thing you can do for your brain is to care for your body. And another thing is this idea of selfishness versus unselfishness, you know, and my sister always, you know, had a problem of, to go and work out or to go to the gym would take an hour out of her day, and then she couldn't be the super mom always available to her 4 kids. And I was like, well, T, you're a nightmare when you don't work out. So why don't you do the selfish thing of going for a run, going to the gym, going to spin class, going to yoga, whatever. Do that selfish thing, and then there's a very unselfish result that happens
for 23 hours after.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, because you worked out, because you did this selfish thing that you want to do, that you need to do, you're a much better person.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of times it's like, just do the selfish thing you need to do to take care of yourself, and then you'll be a better person.
It's so amazing how, because the word self-care has self in it, so many people feel like it's an indulgent portion of life. Whereas in reality, I mean, you mentioned taking care of the dog, you know, like you don't feed yourself, you don't take care of yourself, you will not be able to care for the other people in your life.
And you'll just deteriorate.
Exactly.
And then they suffer. So it's one of the most unselfish things to at least get yourself to a level where you're functioning at your optimal level, because then you can do the best for other people. Thank you for that reminder. The last one, this podcast is called Ignited. We're all about making people's lives the best that it can be, helping them elevate. What gets you ignited in life?
For most of my life, it's been negative energy. It's been hate. It's been revenge. It's been, you know, shit like that. But I've been working, you know, in the last 10 years, to be driven by love. You know, one of the things that I found, you know, when I was out running, like trying to log those long runs, training hard, that like, being angry would help me get my shoes on and get out the door and like get running. But it was thinking about my mom or thinking about my sisters, or like, oh, I'm wearing this shirt that my girlfriend got me, or that an ex-girlfriend got me, and we're still friends. We still care about each other. Thinking about those things, focusing on those things, it's like the anger could get me started, but it was the love that would sort of like keep me going. I don't know, man, it's weird to be this sort of like dour singer-songwriter, sort of like professional complainer, and talk about, how love, drives me. But I'm trying to make that be the thing that drives me,
Oh, yeah. We live in a world right now, and because of Sophie, this world where affirmations and positive thinking, et cetera, has almost become cliche. And so I love the reminder that, and this is true for, by the way, most of the people who've made it a cliche, where it's an effortful thing, right? You have to put focus on choosing that bias. But when you do, you get these rewards, and it's not easy. I remember I talked to a lot of people. 9 Inch Nails is one of my favorite bands of all time. And I still haven't met Trent. So Trent, if you're listening to this, dinner at my house, whenever. But I had to stop listening.
Yeah.
Because when I listen, I get depressed and angry.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be depressed and angry. So I appreciate the musical talent, and I love the years and years and years that I spent really digging in on that music. But I also get to choose what I focus my effort on today. And so for you, especially as somebody who identifies as a professional complainer, to even make that statement is a big win.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us. This has been amazing. And I love connecting to people with these stories who are willing to share them because of the rewards and the payoff for other people who are listening. So thank you for giving us that today.
Keep spreading your love and message.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to talk to you guys.
You too.
All right, man. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.